Rewind. This is Dope Nostalgia.
Check this out. Welcome back to Dope Nostalgia Podcast. I'm Naomi, your host. Today's special guests have been on the show before. They're really big rock fans, and their podcast called Dig Me Out is really cool. Like, go check them out. Dig Me Out podcast. Tim and Jay are here once again to be my special guest talking about a band called Catherine Wheel. I forgot so much about this band. But Jay, it's okay because Jay and Tim are very knowledgeable. They'll fill you in on everything. They always do their homework. Great guests to have. Here's a little bit of background information on Catherine Wheel. Wikipedia moment.
Please bear in mind that Wikipedia can be edited by anyone at any time. If I'm reading you the artist's bio, then you know it's information straight from the source.
Catherine Wheel were an English alternative rock band. The band was active from 1990 to 2000, releasing 5 full-length albums in their career, embarking on many lengthy tours and experiencing fluctuating levels of commercial success. Their early music was associated with the shoegazing scene, but gradually evolved into a more aggressive style, influenced by hard rock and metal. Initially receiving attention and success after releasing their album Ferment in 1992, the band achieved peak success with the release of Crank and their album Chrome in 1993. The band also achieved minor success with their other albums, including Happy Days, which featured a popular song, Judy Staring at the Sun, as a collaboration with Tanya Donnelly. Catherine Wheel also scored heavy rotation on MTV and performed there several times. Despite never having any albums or songs that achieved major success in their homeland, Catherine Wheel continued to be popular among alternative rock and shoegaze fans and critics. Catherine Wheel formed in 1990, comprising singer-guitarist Rob Dickinson, who, by the way, is the cousin of Iron Maiden's Bruce Dickinson, guitarist Brian Futter, bassist Dave Haas, and drummer Neil Sims. Haas had previously played in a Joy Division-influenced band called Eternal. They took their moniker from the firework known as the Catherine Wheel, which in turn had taken its name from the medieval torture device of the same name. The band was sometimes included in the shoegazing scene, characterized by bands that made extensive use of guitar feedback and droning washes of noise, as well as their continuous interaction with extensive numbers of effects pedals on the stage floor. The band performed a Peel session in early '91 while still unsigned. 2 12-inch vinyl EPs were released on the Norwich-based Wild Club Records, named after the regular weekly Wild Club gigs run by Barry Newman. They signed to major label Fontana Records after being courted by both Creation Records and the Brian Eno run label Opal Records. The band's debut album, 91-92's Ferment, made an immediate impression on the music press and introduced Catherine Wheel's second biggest U.S. hit, Black Metallic, as well as the moderate hit, I Want to Touch You. The album features re-recorded versions of some of the Wild Club issued EPs. Black Metallic was later featured in the film S. Darko. The more aggressive Chrome followed in 1993, produced by Gil Norton. With this album, the band began to shed its original shoegazing tag while still making skillful use of atmospherics, such as on the song Fripp. In a 2007 interview, Rob Dickinson said that members of Death Cab for Cutie and Interpol told him that without this album, their bands wouldn't exist. 1995's Happy Days saw the band delving further into metallic hard rock, which alienated a portion of their fan base, even as it increased their exposure in the United States during the post-grunge era. The single Waydown, which you just heard as the background music, and especially its plane crash-themed video, received heavy play in the U.S. A more sedate strain of rock known as Britpop was taking over in the UK, causing Catherine Wheel to continue to have greater success abroad than at home. The B-sides and outtakes collection, like Cats and Dogs, came out the following year, revealing a quieter, more contemplative side of the band, spanning the previous 5 years. This carried over into Adam and Eve in 1997, wherein the band scaled back the sonic force of their sound from its Happy Days levels, with clean playing on some songs that featured extensive use of keyboards and acoustic guitars. Alternately, songs like Satellite and Here Comes the Fat Controller were lush and orchestral in scope. In 2000, Catherine Wheel reemerged with a brand new label, a new bassist, Ben Ellis, a modified name. They added The Catherine Wheel, and the new album, Wishville. After mixed reviews, record company turmoil, and lackluster sales, the band went on a hiatus. In January 2022, the band began updating a new Instagram account, suggesting that the band had reformed in some capacity. In March 2010, Ferment was re-released, containing bonus tracks and extensive sleeve notes. Now, I had a little bit of trouble recording this episode. My gain on my channel on my microphone was way too hot. And so because of that, I tried to use some compression and different fixes to try to get rid of that distortion. So you might be hearing some odd, weird beeps during the episode. That's just because I didn't bother spend the money to register the tool I used to try to declip. So if you hear those beeps, don't worry about it. Just carry on. It's not that bad. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Tim and Jay of Dig Me Out podcast to talk all about Catherine Wheel. Hey, it's nice to have Tim and Jason back from Dig Me Out podcast. How are you guys doing?
Very well. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. What's been going on with your show since the last time we talked?
Let's see. Well, first of all, let me congratulate you on hitting over 250 episodes.
Thanks.
Because we are in, gosh, Jay, where are we? I think we've hit 800 in that range.
If we count so since we talked last, I don't know that we were doing the 80s metal podcast when we talked last, so we've added another podcast.
Oh, have you?
Which is, so now we're doing 90s every week and 80s metal every 2 weeks. So that's got our total, probably close to 800 episodes.
So we've talked impressive. A lot. Jay and I have talked a lot. I talked to him more than I talked to my wife. No,
and we roll in 70s rocks episodes as like bonuses and 2000s. So we're trying to cover every decade we can.
Yes.
Yeah, you always got to count all these bonus episodes, and then you really are like, wow, what have we done?
Well, I'm sure, like you, we get interested in things that aren't necessarily the 90s. We go, oh, what is that? And you want to check these things out, but then you have limited time. So if you can like figure out a way to make it your job, like I have to listen to this 70s rock album. It's for the podcast. Mm-hmm. There we go. That's how we do it.
Perfect. Now, one thing I noticed I thought was really cool is I saw a post you guys had on November 4th where you guys went into the Schizophonic album by Nuno Betancourt.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
That was fun. A treasure.
And, I'm not as well versed with 80s and 90s metal the way Jay is, but even Jay had not heard that record. So it was new to both of us and really, really interesting record.
We talked about in the episode that I was an extreme fan up until Waiting for the Punchline, and I just lost track of what any of the members did until, I knew Gary Sharon joined Van Halen, but I didn't know what Nuno was doing. And then, in the 2000s, they come back. So it was pretty fun to see. I knew he had released some solo stuff, and we had some listeners who had been talking about it. So it was cool when it came through. It was like, okay, let's check this out. And we dug into it, and it's a pretty great record.
It is. And he'd done a couple other like band projects. I think Nuno was doing something with Satellite Party, Perry Farrell.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, we talked about that.
He had the Morning Widows. That's where his drummer, the current drummer for Extreme, is from, Kevin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
There's a couple other projects too, so Nuno stayed busy.
Well, obviously, I think his day job at that point was playing for Rihanna. So in his spare time, he was putting out solo records, I suppose.
True. But yeah, no, I thought that was really cool when I saw that.
Yeah, it was fun.
Mention it. You guys got to go check it out. Dig Me Out podcast. Always, always good. So today we are going to talk about Catherine Wheel. And the funny thing to me was that I remembered the name of the band, but I totally forgot anything about them. I couldn't even think of what their big single would have been. For some reason, I kept thinking of Sex and Candy, but that's Marcy Playground.
That's Marcy Playground, yeah.
So what was their hugest single anyways?
Well, in terms of chart position, their biggest, it depends on the country. So they were actually more popular in terms of chart position in the US and Canada than they were in their home of England, which is kind of what happened with Bush.
It's funny you say that because in my notes I said they kind of remind me of Bush a little bit.
Yeah, the guitar driven, alternative rock of the 90s.
Yeah.
According to the Wikipedia, the number one single for them in Canada was Waydown, which is off their third album, Happy Days. In the United States, their number one or their top charting single was Crank off of the second album, Chrome. That made it to number 5 in the US on the alt charts. They had singles chart, in the UK, but none of them cracked like the top 40.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were never really a big singles band there. And it was sparse. Like they only had, like 4 or 5 singles chart in Canada and same in the United States. So although they got radio push, they never really broke through, which is why I think they're so interesting. Yeah. Also, they're condensed to 10 years. They are an epitome of a 90s band. Started in 90, ended in 2000. Everything they did is within that time frame. So they are tidally locked into the 90s.
They weren't a big radio band. The only single I remember on the radio was probably Judy Staring at the Sun, which would have been around 95. But they were more like the band, if your friends knew, you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, have you heard this band? And you'd share cassettes or burn them onto a CD, and it's like, oh wow, this is really cool. Who is this? And then you realize, like, oh, they've got these other albums that came out. They were just one of those kind of underground, wouldn't say underground, but like they were on a major label. They work with Bob Ezrin. Like there was a lot of effort put into the band. Commercially, they just never really broke through with a big single like Bush did, obviously with several of them. But I always thought of them as the band me and my friends loved, and like we only knew about them, Yeah,
it never made sense to me. At the time, like, why don't people know this band? They have like really catchy songs. They're big guitar driven songs. The lead singer like is got a great voice that can do a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened exactly, other than I think and we can get into it more, but I think their decision to constantly tweak their sound might have worked against them. But for us who are fans, like, I love that they did that, because you every album has its own flavor. Mm-hmm. It's not, I love AC/DC, but you listen to AC/DC, you get the idea of what AC/DC sounds like. You're basically just picking out your favorite AC/DC songs. With Catherine Wheel, like, they start at one end of the musical spectrum and they are at a completely different end of the rock spectrum by the time they're 4 albums in, which is very unusual. Usually
I found the shift very subtle too, though, from album to album. But if you listen to the first album and the last album, then you're like, whoa.
Yep. If you go in sequence, they kind of warm up to the new ideas.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they were putting out records like, almost every 2 years, right? I don't think there's longer than a 3-year gap. So you're consistently getting a new idea, a new side of the band. But yeah, if you listen to the bookends, they're very dramatically different.
I've heard the term shoegaze thrown around so many times as a genre, and I never quite understood what shoegaze meant. How would each of you describe it?
Well, we did a whole episode trying to figure that out. Because it is a very like loose term. Essentially, the term came from literally people playing their guitars. They had so many pedals in front of them that they looked at their shoes the entire time, so they could keep tapping pedals to, that was the derogatory.
Be like, they're shoegazing.
They're shoegazing.
It all made sense when I put it together in my brain. I'm like, pedals.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now we get it.
It was very, it was not a band or a scene where you would see people like jumping around and it's not very energetic. It's a very, and the term that the journalists used in the UK was the scene that celebrates itself. Like, it was so incestuous and so self-congratulatory. It kind of burned out pretty fast, actually. I was looking at the history of shoegaze, and it sort of starts in, like, I guess you could say like the mid 80s in reality, with like Creation Records and Jesus and Mary Chain and some of that stuff. And then you get into My Bloody Valentine, which I think most people consider Loveless by My Bloody Valentine to be sort of the shoegaze album. That's 91, I think. And you get like two halves of the shoegaze scene. So you get the first half, which is like the experimental, lots of underground, and then Loveless, for whatever reason, kicked the door open for a lot of bands to get signed by labels, and especially in the UK. But they also then sort of did what Catherine Wheel did, because the first Slow Dive album is very shoegaze, but then they start tweaking their sound and adding electronics. Or Lush goes from being a shoegaze band to like embracing Britpop. So all those bands sort of gradually moved away from the shoegaze sound, I guess, naturally. And then it's had a resurgence in, like, I would say the 2020s, especially. There's been a lot of shoegaze bands, but really, to me, it's just like a lot of guitar with a lot of crafted effects and feedback and noise, vocals that are not non-existent, but they're buried for the most part.
Yes. Some of the aesthetic would be, you'd be trying to add so much delay to your guitar that it no longer sounded like a guitar. Like it would just be like this roaring, endless sustain of distortion. Some bands would really get into that part of it, and there would be other bands that would kind of do that, but then pull it back. And I think, Catherine Wheel came in under that sound and indulged a little bit, into that.
Right.
But also you could tell right away, like they were trying to write songs. Like they weren't just trying to make music and noise and, make a statement. They were trying to figure out, you can hear on the first record with songs like Black Metallic, they're trying to like write somewhat hooky, verse, chorus, verse type rock songs.
Yeah.
Would you consider them melodic at any point? In like, how melodic do you think this band is?
I don't think they're pop melodic, but I do think in terms of like a straightforward alternative rock band in the 90s, they're pretty damn catchy, a lot of their songs. But not in the way that, like you mentioned, Sex and Playground, Marcy Playground, like not that kind of hooky, like not like the kind of hook that will get you on the radio because it's almost a novelty. They never got that kind of song.
I always thought of them, especially as you go through the catalog and you get to like midway through like Happy Days, and then for sure on Adam and Eve, and through Wishville, I always heard a lot of Pink Floyd. So to me, they kind of took the shoegaze thing and then they started to, evolve it into something a little bit more progressive. It had a lot more space in it, so shoegaze is known for like filling all the space with the guitar. After the second record, they start to do things where there's long sections where, there is no guitar. There's just organ or vocal or, other percussion. And they start playing around with, I think, melodies that would be more familiar with like a classic Pink Floyd, where it's, building and developing and kind of sophisticated. I mean, it builds to a big hook, so as I was going back through a lot of my favorite songs, like they are kind of orchestrated and then they slowly build their way to this, to these moments where he's delivering, a really iconic line, and, the band is kind of soaring and it feels epic, and then it pulls back down and they become that kind of band, where it's, I guess, progressive in that way, so the song structures start to change a bit more on the middle to end records, where they're getting expansive. Some of them are pushing, 5 minutes. They're putting interludes in, they're getting more like a classic, like 70s progressive rock band in that way, minus like weird time signatures. They're not doing anything like, super complicated like that. It's more, I think, melodically, it becomes more progressive.
They didn't have a huge turnover in members. It appears that most of the members are the originals. The one name that stood out, Ben Ellis, as a past member, I guess. Everyone else seems to still be in the band. Is that correct?
He was there is no band at the present, which is a very frustrating thing for fans, because there have been things teased, and then what they teased turned out to not be a reunion or not be. So people have been a little flustered about that. But Ben was brought in during the last album cycle to replace Dave Hawes, who was the original bass player. He left the band after Adam and Eve and actually moved to where I live here in Ohio.
Oh yeah.
He met a woman, and they got married, and he stayed here in Ohio, and so he's still here. But then Ben was in the band for Wishville. I don't think he played on the record. I think the band covered that, but he was on tour because we saw them on tour for that album. Tracy Bonham was the opener. We drove up to Detroit from Columbus, Ohio to see them.
Yeah,
And
there's a connection there with Tracy Bonham, isn't there?
yes, actually, one of the members of the band ended up playing with her, I think, after the band dissolved.
Mm-hmm.
But all those guys were, you know, together in school and like young, and they came up right with that shoegaze scene of the late 80s, and they were making music, and they got on John Peel's show, who was the legendary DJ in the UK, without having a record label. Like, they sent him a demo of their own, doing, and he liked their demo enough that he's like, come and play on the show. So they got tastemakers like them from the start over in the UK. Why that didn't turn into more wider acclaim, I don't really know. I do think the fact that the first album coming out in 92 sounding so shoegaze, and shoegaze has almost started to move on at this point, that maybe that was bad timing for them. It maybe sounded old by 92. And that's where you can hear for when they make Chrome, which comes out the very next year. They recorded it in 93 and then released it in 93. So it was a very fast record, which they did with Gil Norton, who's worked with a ton of bands that the Pixies, the Foo Fighters, who else? Jimmy Eat World. I mean, he's got a big resume, and he sort of leans them into the heavier guitar sound that they start to get into on Chrome, which helps them move out of that shoegaze space. They can kind of have some shoegaze, like Jay said, Pink Floyd-esque songs on that album. But they don't go full into like straight up hard rock until Happy Days, which is where I discovered them. I don't know about Jay, but I discovered them on Happy Days.
Yeah, Happy Days is where I discovered them. And I remember at the time it was controversial because this is also one of those bands where I think you'll find their fan base is kind of split. So they identified very much with the shoegaze scene with the first two records, and they made the conscious decision with Happy Days to be more of a hard rock band. And I think they were a lot of bands in England. I think Blur did the same thing for a moment with Song 2, where they were seeing like all this heavy music coming out of the US, and they said, we can do that. And they decided to, play more riffs and, make the guitars a little bit more, muscular, less washy, more hard rock like. The songs on that album start to, diverge. There's some stuff that's like really aggressive that you don't necessarily hear on the first two albums. So they made a conscious decision, I think, to not only get heavier, but I would think to be more appealing to American audiences, North American audiences, with trying to get out of the, this weird shoegaze thing, which was cool at the time. But like, obviously at this point in the mid 90s, America's all about kind of heavy alternative rock. And they were definitely, I think, inspired to try to, do something in that space. One bit of trivia that kind of plays into that a little bit is, so the singer's name's Rob Dickinson. Does that last name ring a bell to you?
Yes.
So his cousin is Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden. So I think that also gave him a little bit of like insight into how the industry works. I think they had a pretty good manager that got them a lot of their, as a result of that. And I remember seeing Bruce Dickinson in 95 when Happy Days came out, and he was like doing press for something else, I think his own record, but he was also talking about Catherine Wheel a lot because he was super excited about his cousin's band. And the other fun part of trivia is that an Iron Maiden is a medieval torture device, and so is a Catherine Wheel.
I was wondering. Very hard to find information on the band when it's about a medieval torture device. Great name.
You would never, I think hear that connection maybe until Happy Days, and you're like, oh, okay, this is you can see this band. It's got some kind of heavy rock roots in there somewhere,
Right.
coming out now.
So I wonder if it was just something that was always in them. They wanted to gravitate toward a heavier rock sound just because they enjoyed it, or if it was a direct mission to get themselves out of the shoegaze scene and into America, or if it's a bit of both.
A little, I would say it's probably a little both. And Brian Futter, who's the lead guitar player, like, to pull off what they're trying to do, you need to be able to play that stuff. And he shows on that record, like he's able to play
Yes.
it as well as, he can play blazing leads and also diverge into things that are super noisy and weird. So that's a fun record for me. I think, probably, nostalgic for Tim because that's where we found the band, but it's also like that direct middle point where you hear the old band, but then you hear the new band and it's like all mashed up in that record together. It's probably the most expansive. I think that's the one that like diverges the most, it's got the most range.
And I just want to mention their manager, Mercurius. He was a band manager for a number of years. He's one of those guys who now runs a company that buys the music catalogs of people for like $500 million. So like when Bruce Springsteen or, Bon Jovi or one of those type of people sell their catalog for some ridiculous money, he's the one buying those so that he can then license the music and make a bunch of money off of his. So he's got like huge portfolios of artists that he has control over their music, which is crazy. But
that's scary.
Yeah, actually. It is.
I don't like people having that kind of power.
It's
although these artists may have willingly sold him that power, that's I guess one thing. After you've seen what's happened with other artists who've done that and they can't get their catalogs back. Ugh.
I think for like, the famous one is the Paul McCartney situation with the Beatles. Yeah. He was so much younger when that happened. I mean, he's only like in his 40s when that happened. Whereas, Bruce Springsteen is in his 70s, right? It makes sense that he's going to wind this down and go, okay, I can take this money. I can do something with it. If I die, then it's just going to go into a trust or it's going to be inherited, something like that. So, you know what I just thought about? I don't even know if Bruce Springsteen has kids. Does Bruce Springsteen have kids? Does anybody know that?
I'm sure he does, but yeah, couldn't tell you.
I've never heard a young Springsteen out there like trying to make a career of doing something. I did want to mention, Jay, you mentioned Bob Ezrin. They had a lot of really interesting producers that they worked with. Gil Norton, like I said, Bob Ezrin, who worked with Kiss. And then Tim Fries-Green works on Ferment, their first record, and Wishville, their last record. But he also plays on all their records because he plays keyboards and organs. He was a member of Talk Talk, the 80s synth pop band we know from It's My Life, which no doubt covered and made a big single. Yes. So he brings in this, if you've listened to Talk Talk at all, they start out very like new wavy and then get very expansive with their sound, very progressive. And you can hear that influence when you go from, especially the middle three records, from Chrome to Happy Days to Adam and Eve. There's such a natural flow that they end up in a Pink Floyd-esque progressive, not with crazy time signature progressive, but like the Pink Floyd Big Idea album with Adam and Eve, where you have, piano and intros and outros, and it's much more thought through. There's arrangements happening that are really big, and like Here Comes the Fat Controller is one of my favorite Catherine Reel songs. I don't think you get to the chorus until like 4 minutes into the song. I mean, and the song builds and builds and builds and builds, and it finally releases you. That's something they could not have pulled off on
Tantric.
Yeah, it's well, they just didn't have that skill level. Like if you listen to those first couple records, it's very much loud intro, quiet verse, loud chorus, repeat, solo section, and then get out. Occasionally they would break that formula for the very like slow dramatic songs. Thinking of like Fripp or Eat My Dust, You Insensitive F. I don't know if we can swear it.
Yes, you can.
Which, by the way, that's one of my favorite song titles of all time. Eat My Dust, You Insensitive Fuck. but you could hear where they were playing around with like the big ideas of really expanded long songs. But it wasn't until Adam and Eve where it kind of coalesced into an entire record of more atmosphere, which is not something they ever played with.
Yeah, I was thinking, we said when we started this, we've reviewed quite a few records at this point. So one of the things we start to, recognize themes. One of the themes we've recognized is, it's really hard. Or you can tell if a band is good if they can pull off a really good slow song. And they pull off a lot of good songs. A lot of their best songs are slow songs, and they pull it off. And they figure out a way to fill the space and keep it moving. And there's an art to being able to keep you interested and keep some kind of pulse in the song, so you don't just fade out and start paying attention to other things. They do a really good job. I've always felt, and I think that's what draws me to the band. They can turn the tempo down in the same way that Pink Floyd did and keep you engaged the entire time. And the song develops, and these new surprises happen, and there's different sounds and things going on. And I've always kind of recognized that, but I think just revisiting the catalog for this, it really hit me up like, wow, they have a lot of slow songs, and they're really good at doing this, because Tim and I have reviewed a lot of albums where they're, a band is good, but they'll try to put a couple slow tunes on there, and you start to realize like, ooh, these get super thin and boring, and I'm fading and not paying attention, and it's hard.
That's a great statement. That combined with being able to play something stripped down.
Yes.
Those two things.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hello, listeners. It has been such an experience doing this show for the last 5+ years, but it gets expensive. If you didn't know, there's a lot of costs that go into making a podcast. That's why we have our Patreon page, patreon.com/dope nostalgia. That's where you can go and subscribe, get all the extra details, bonus videos, and early podcast release for as little as $1 a month. Please subscribe today and help support one of your favorite podcasts.
Hey, I'm Jake Slichter from Semisonic, and you're listening to the Dope Nostalgia Podcast.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Nicole.
And this is Soundtrack Your Life, the podcast that's all about the film and TV soundtracks you love.
The best and weirdest songs from cult classics and hit TV shows, we're talking about them. Great guests, we've got those too. Listen in for interviews with bands like Save Ferris and We Are Scientists, plus hilarious chats with the best pop culture critics out there.
New episodes drop on Monday, and you can find them wherever you listen to podcasts.
Oopsie Daisy is learning to crawl. She's such a pretty baby. She crawls to me as nice as can be. Oopsie Daisy.
When Oopsie Daisy falls, she cries and gets right back up again.
Whoops! Oopsie Daisy.
New from Tyco.
What are some examples maybe of some of the slower songs that you think were excellent for either of you?
Well, you just touched on one, Tim.
Honestly, my favorite of their slow songs is Heal, which is on Happy Days. And there's actually two versions of it. There's the Happy Days version, and then there's a shorter radio edit that's on their compilation, like Cats and Dogs. I love that record, or I love that song, because first of all, it's the first three songs on that record are barn burners. And then it says, no, stop. We're going to chill out for 6 minutes. He sings in falsetto on that song, which is really great. they introduce an organ bridge where they strip everything away, and he goes into this like repetitive sort of vocal it's he's one of those lyricists where sometimes I'm like, is that profound or is that just a good collection of words together?
Yeah.
Because he sings things like in that song, everyone needs someone to live by. And I'm like, does that make sense? It sounds cool. Everybody needs someone. I mean, you need a neighbor, like you need someone near you in case you fall.
Like physically next to me?
Yeah, like next to me. or do we all need like love in our life? That sort of thing. So it's open to interpretation, but I love the like you said, the Pink Floyd, it's somehow slow and yet still aggressive. You can hear Brian Futter on that, just like wanting to break out with his guitar. He's doing like these big bends and slides up the neck of the guitar, and there's a lot of distortion, but then they will just drop everything out and leave you with just an organ. It's very dramatic. They play very well with dynamics throughout their career. Even on the shoegaze albums like Black Metallic, there's some really amazing dynamic shifts on that record, and overall with this band. I think that's what pulls them through a lot of the slow songs, is that they're just good songwriters. And what Jay said about like not having, if you slow everything down to 60 beats per minute, maybe there should be a hi-hat like double time, or maybe there should be something a little faster happening just so you don't get bogged down. Jay, what would you say in terms of a slow song that really nails it?
Thing that's interesting about the band, I think too, is that as they start to get more expansive, the songs get a little, slower. They start filling it in with an organ, and they didn't have a full-time organ player in the band. I mean, there's no listed organ player for the band. But as you get to Happy Days, and especially Adam and Eve, a lot of the really cool tension that's built in these moments is through this bed of, organ either coming in or dropping out, or kind of like sitting on a note that's a little, off from what the vocal is doing. So I would say like there's the run in Adam and Eve, from Thunderbird to Here Comes the Fat Controller, that's always been for me like just so classic, the way all that builds. I think Ballad of a Running Man from Wishville is just brilliant. And it starts off with this kind of 6/8 rollick where it's kind of like, it has some momentum to it, but then they just literally like slow the song down. Like you hear it go to this like this tension. You're like, where are we going? And it boom, it releases, and then they do that throughout the song, and you can just hear in that, that pays off with like a harmonica comes in. Where the harmonica come from? There's no harmonica player in this band, like, So it's like all of these cool, like playing with time and like drawing you down, and then boom, hitting you with a surprise, and you get to a big like rhythmic chorus that's a little different. So, Ballad of a Running Man would be a good example on the last record, and then that stretch on Adam and Eve, sort of at the middle. And the songs like they kind of weave together too on that album. The second half, there's a lot of like segues, and they put bookends. There's an intro and outro. They kind of give you that storytelling, almost a concept album, thing going on.
Deeply Miss is a full album that belongs together as an album.
Yeah, you don't hear that much anymore. Yep.
True. Those are great examples, though. Thanks for sharing those, both of you. Does this band have any controversies at all that you know of?
Controversies?
Yeah.
Probably just that
they won't get back together.
They're done.
Yeah.
They're done. Rob, in 2007, Rob founded a company called Singer Vehicles, which is an incredible coach builder of vintage Porsches. He started as like a little passion project. After he did one solo record, and then he started this company, and it's exploded. Like they're selling like, I think they're close to $1 million Porsches that they hand build.
You can actually click on the link on Wikipedia. That's how you know it's big.
That's when you know it's big.
So that started off as like a thing in his garage, and now it's like, a major company that I think he's pretty happy. I would guess, based on the interviews I've read and what I've seen, he's pretty happy doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And there seems to be no, let's be honest, a lot of bands reunite because somebody in the band needs money.
Most times.
And Rob, being the main songwriter and voice of the band, I don't think is going to need money anytime soon. So he would want to put aside, if you just think about logically, right? He would want to put aside what he's doing on his day job, which I think he likes doing, to go out and play Catherine Wheel shows to probably, 500 people or something.
Right.
It's hard to imagine like wanting to do that.
It would have to be a passion project, and something would have to really like drive him creatively.
Yeah. He lives in California. Like Tim said, the bass player lives in Columbus. The rest of the band lives in the UK still. Right. I mean, how you doing that? There's been rumors about, they got back together, or there were conversations maybe about they might get back together, but
from what
I've
I
always
recall,
been skeptical whatever happened.
They got together to discuss like reissuing stuff, because one of the problems with Catherine was, they were on Mercury Records, which was connected to Chrysalis or Fontana or something. Basically, they were on labels that weren't easy to get the masters again. So it took a long time. All these other bands were getting their albums reissued in the 2000s, 2010s. Catherine was nowhere to be found. They were like one of those bands where people were like, is this ever going to happen? Finally, I don't even know. Must have been 2017 is when they started doing reissues finally, only in Europe. And you have to get them imported from the UK. They went through Music on Vinyl, which is one of those reissue companies, and they did a very short run. So now they're like really hard to get. It's frustrating in that their catalog and their legacy has kind of just been left out there with nobody really paying attention to it. They did do a reissue just online of their like first demos that they recorded, called the North Folk Remasters. And this was one of those things where they put like a countdown clock up and we're like, oh my gosh, they're going to announce something big. And it was just like a remastering of some early songs. Everybody thought they were going to announce shows or something. Or like, I think people would be happy if they just showed up at like Riot Fest in Chicago or Coachella or Lollapalooza, just played like one reunion show just so that you don't have to worry about putting on a tour. Like you're just showing up there. The infrastructure is already there. All you have to do is show up, play. Obviously you have to practice it, before that. Like Jay said, they're on, much different time zones. They don't live in the same country. Rob's busy. He named a company after what his job was. He named it Singer. He's a singer. I mean, the guy's, he's got it made. he's making
his
Porsches.
Cousin's flying planes. He's remodeling Porsches.
Which I think that's funny that he ended up, because if you go back and listen to Catherine Wheel songs, there are a lot of references to cars in the lyrics of Catherine Wheel songs. If you paid, there's songs about he mentions lyrics about Jaguars. There's a song called just Car that's on their B-sides album. There's Thunderbird. Yeah, there's a bunch of little references to cars throughout their or automobiles throughout their career. So
something else cool about them that people might not know, but I enjoy, is that I think all their album covers, or most of them, were designed by Storm Thurgeson.
I think except for the first one,
Hypnosis, which is he is probably the most famous album cover artist in the history of the world. He designed like Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, and Led Zeppelin, and Through the Outdoor, and Genesis, The Lamb Lies Down at Broadway, and I mean hundreds and hundreds of album covers.
Yes.
The style is like surrealistic kind of photography. Like, um, I'm sure once you start looking at his stuff, you're like, oh, I get the look. But
So
yeah,
it's
starting with
photography. It's not just
yeah,
graphic
it's
design.
most of it's photography, but it'll be like a really like outrageous scene, either staged with costumes or
Mm-hmm.
The chrome cover is pretty cool. In the
yeah,
pool there.
that's the first one he did with Catherine Wheel, and then I think he went on to do all the others. But again, like they had the connections. They were, doing all the stuff that, a major rock band would be doing. They just never really found their big
Right.
breakout commercial pathway.
They're a
Yeah.
band that deserved more than what they got.
I don't know if they deserve it. And like, I don't know if they worked hard enough to deserve it. I'm sure they did. But yeah, it's perplexing why, because the way I heard them was MTV. I saw the video for Waydown on MTV, and I went, holy crap, what is this band? This song is awesome. And then went and found the CD I think it was in our mutual friend Keith's CD collection. And I was like, yoink, I'm borrowing that. But I just think like, there's just timing with some bands. And this band is, Adam and Eve is a fantastic record. It made many, many top tens that year, but OK Computer came out that year. So it is, if OK Computer doesn't come out that year, maybe Adam and Eve does better. But OK Computer was such a massive artistic statement that it sort of leaves Adam and Eve in the shadow, which is too bad, because it's, in my mind, it is just as interesting an artistic statement as OK Computer is. I mean, it's a grandiose concept album. The album is great. There's tons of B-sides to this album. And actually the band has probably 2 albums worth of not unreleased, but uncollected B-sides. They put out a whole album of B-sides, but then they still have like 3 EPs from before their first album, demos, a bunch of singles from the Adam and Eve era, some singles from the Wishville era. And they're all just, you can't listen to them because they don't, not that stuff doesn't, make it to streaming, just the albums do. So there are probably 30 songs throughout their career that if it was a more appreciated band, you'd be able to hear them. There'd be big compilations out there for people to check out, and box sets and, all those things that they do to keep bands relevant, to keep releasing things, anniversary editions, expanded editions. None of that has happened with Catherine Wheel. So I think that's what's frustrating a lot of it.
I'm not sure if touring worked out as well as it could have for them. I mean, they toured a lot for Happy Days and Chrome, but I don't know that they ever really got that like right opening slot, or even later, like the Wishville tour we saw them on that tour. I don't think they played many dates at that point.
And it wasn't, so I don't even think they were sold out.
No. And I think they were still living in the UK at that point. I'm pretty sure, which probably made it hard, makes it much more difficult to tour in North America. So I can't help but wonder, like, some bands like really are able to stay active and kind of build a catalog and a following over time without radio, but I think you got to do it through touring, and doing it consistently, like hitting the right festival dates, finding the right opening slots, like being on the road all the time. And I think they toured a lot, but I don't know that they probably, to be successful without the radio support, they needed to be touring way more than they did. That's my thought. And that didn't happen. And I suspect, by the time they broke up after Wishville or took a break, they were sort of tired of trying.
And they were going against the grain. I mean, all the UK bands, when Happy Days came out, that was prime Britpop. That was Blur versus Oasis. And they're putting out a hard rock record. Couldn't be less on point with what's happening in the UK. And then in the United States, Bush is between records at this point. 95, when Happy Days comes out, is really not a great year for a band like Catherine Wheel to bust loose. Like, that's the year of Alanis. That's the year of No Doubt. That's the following the year of Offspring and Green Day. Like, that kind of rock was kind of left behind, I'd say, by like 93. So they were just like always not in the right period.
Yeah.
How frustrating. Yes.
Oh yeah. But
Yeah.
I know we have the music, so, and maybe someday they'll do some sort of a reunion show.
Well, I don't know. They don't do a lot of press anymore.
No,
but it's possible that they're content with how it went, and you don't see like them like trying to make press all the time or trying to like make it work or try to put together some version of the band or like being another. I mean, they're barely even, I think, like we mentioned, Brian Futter has another little band that he does with a member. They don't tour much. They don't release much. They did that thing with, they did the thing with Tracy Bonham, but they're not super, they're talented enough to be playing with anybody, but they don't seem to be super motivated or, out trying to like do more. So I don't know. They could be happy with the way it went. I mean, a lot of this is like, what are your expectations?
Maybe they're doing projects that they're more passionate about, even, like, who knows? Ben Ellis went on to play with Iggy Pop.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
And
that's not a gig to laugh at there. That's
cool. And he was in the Stranglers before he joined Catherine Wheel, which is kind of a British punk band, which was an interesting. I know when we went to see them, we met the band and we were talking to him, and he mentioned that. It was like, what?
I never.
How did Catherine Wheel end up with the guy from the Stranglers? Like, okay.
Nice.
Talking to them was like talking to aliens. Like anything I said, I felt like it was completely misinterpreted, and I felt so dumb talking to them. Like they were all. It's like talking to like the headmaster of a English, school, and like they felt very. Even though they were rock musicians, they all felt like very proper. And I was like, so who do you like? How'd you learn to play bass? I couldn't think of anything smart to say. And
that's a normal problem to have when
you're standing
not having a
people.
game plan going into a conversation with somebody that you're like,
yes, exactly.
Look at you.
You ended up just saying like, you're awesome.
Yeah, you do. No, you know what? Oh my God. I said to Brian Futter, I think he was sitting at the end. I'm like, where are you guys playing next? And he goes, Buffalo, which is where I'm from originally. I said, well, make sure you have some wings. I'm sure he had no freaking clue what I was talking. Like, wings? What do you mean wings? He probably thought, like, what is this guy talking about? But to me, it made sense in my fear-soaked head at that time.
It's all about the delivery. And you're like, okay, how do I back up and re-say this?
Yeah, I'm like slowly backing out of the room like an idiot.
Homer Simpson going into the bush.
Exactly. I just hope us talking about this band will get people to go and check out their work, because I think that they're really fascinating. Part of the 90s that is not going to be part of the conversation in general. Like they're a very minor footnote, but I think it's really interesting that they exist entirely within that period. There's no 80s output. There's no 2000s output. It's all there.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, like you said, Naomi, like they made albums. They have starts, they have middles, and they have ends. And like some of the stuff is at first you'll listen to it and be like a little challenging, and maybe you won't get it. And other stuff you will. And then as you spend more time with it, like it'll connect with you. They made that kind of music, which it's hard to find anymore. Most people make records in their bedrooms over the internet with other people. They don't actually get into a room together anymore. And
it's a singles driven market too.
Yeah. You write a couple singles and release them, and that's it. And this is, I think they're a good example of that era of the 90s, but also bringing in some of the stuff from, the 70s. It was kind of cool, and, mixing it all up.
They brought some great talent and uniqueness to the table, which is always appreciated. One thing I noticed too here, to go off a little bit on their music video list, for the Eat My Dust, You Insensitive Fuck, the director of that video was Stephen Dorff, the actor.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Wow.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they made a video for that song.
I
The
didn't
younger
either.
sibling of the Phoenixes, River, Joaquin, Summer, she starred in the video.
Wow.
I did not know there was a Summer Phoenix.
There's a few, yeah, they all have cool names. And there's a
River,
big family.
Summer, Joaquin,
And
Liberty. Okay.
Yep.
Their parents might have been hippies.
Yeah.
maybe.
Like the
Possibly.
Zappas.
Yes, exactly. Moon Unit. Yeah, their video output is, sparse. I mean, there's like maybe one or two per record. But Waydown was Mark Pellington. Mark Pellington did so many music videos. He did the Jeremy video. I mean, he did Alice in Chains' Rooster. He did a bunch of Bon Jovi videos.
Ooh.
Yeah, he's got a huge career, and he's a movie director. If you're a fan of the 2002 film The Mothman Prophecies, that was directed by Mr. Mark Pellington, which is about the bridge from West Virginia to Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And the evil Mothman that lives there.
Oh, he did the Destination Anywhere movie from John Bon Jovi with Whoopi Goldberg, Demi Moore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's cool.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Lots of compilations like U2's Achtung Baby video set, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains. Pretty cool.
Yeah, he's got a varied career of video directing and then also movies and other stuff. Oh, he did Silverchair's Tomorrow. I mean, geez, like you look at this stuff that he did. I mean, it is U2's one, just a ton of music videos.
Is that the one with the buffalo running?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah. What a list.
And again, they worked with every aspect of the band. They worked with incredible people. Like Jay mentioned, Storm Thorgerson, Bob Ezrin, Tim Fries-Green, Gil Norton, Mark Pellington. I mean, at every instance, people who are good want to work with them, and they want to work with interesting, creative people. And for whatever reason, it just never congealed into massive popularity. It was big enough to sell a few thousand. I don't know how. I wonder if any of these records have sold 1 million. I doubt it. Over time,
they're probably how many of today's artists were influenced by them.
Well, that's the thing. Rob Dickinson has talked about when he meets younger musicians. He said he's had people from like the band Interpol and Ben Gibbard from Death Cab have said like Catherine Wheel's Crank was seminal record for them. Mm-hmm. And other people have talked about Catherine Wheel as being a band that, like Jay said, it was something your friends knew about and a lot of musicians really liked, but didn't necessarily catch on globally or locally with the average listener. Right. Just missed that aspect of it, which is honestly some of my favorite bands are the ones that are just below the mainstream consciousness, but still have a nice fan base and career. Mm-hmm. So that's all I got.
You guys had a lot of awesome information. Is there anything else you guys want to add before we wrap it up?
Maybe go listen to Catherine Wheel, and after you do that, you can go to our website.
That's right.
digmeuppodcast.com.
There is now make sure you listen to the correct Catherine Wheel, because now there is the Catherine Wheel US, which is a different band.
What?
And there's a band called The Catherine Wheels with an S, which is like a folk band. So
already lacking in originality.
One of the frustrating things about streaming music now, I don't think I'm alone in this, is like I'm constantly being told like one of my favorite bands just released a new album, and I go to click on it. I'm like, that's not the band. Who is this? And why are they using their name?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, Tesla has something out new, and I play it, and it's like electronic music. I'm like, this isn't Tesla. It's like, oh, somebody's just using the name Tesla now.
Oh,
like, gotta defend your copyrights, people.
What are you going to do about it?
When you're driving a Tesla, you should have a Tesla album on.
That should be required. It should come
loaded,
like the U2 album that was loaded onto those iPods. Your Tesla should come with a Tesla.
When you start it up, it should just play Modern Day Cowboy. That should be the ignition sound.
What you give? Yeah.
No, I think it's Heaven's Trail. That's the one you'd start with. You're ready to kick ass in your Tesla.
Ooh.
Just ready to sell that car
got
within
it.
a month.
There you that too.
Oh, guys, thank you so much for being on the show. It's really nice having you guys on because you're very knowledgeable. You come with so prepared, and I just appreciate it. And you have an incredible podcast. So I want everyone to go check it out.
Thank you very much. And
Well,
thank you for having us back. I'm sorry it took us so long to reconnect.
Hey, that's life.
That's life. It's stuff's happening out there, and sometimes we get distracted. But I'm glad we were able to hook up again, and we got to get you on the show sometime over on the Dig Me Out. So let's get that done.
Ooh, one thing I was thinking about is actually we should do a Bush episode.
We've never covered 16 Stone,
and that I love that album. So
some people don't like Bush in general. I like Bush of 16 Stone. I don't love everything after that. I think the second album's fine. I think after that it starts to wane for me. But that first album to me, man, they had some special sauce on that record.
It was really
I
good.
love the slide guitar on Everything Zen. That's like catnip. So
when
yes.
you were saying, is this just a bunch of cool words thrown together, or does it actually mean something? That's when you think of Bush.
That's when I think of Bush. Yes, it's the refrigerator magnet style of lyricism.
Man, that sounds deep.
Mickey Mouse has grown up a cow. Okay.
And what does glycerine have to do with this?
I don't know.
What is glycerine? I don't know.
Well, that will be a great episode if we do that.
We're gonna make that happen.
We got to come together with our favorite weird ass lyrics that they've made too, and be like, "What?"
There are a few.
Well, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much, Naomi.
Yeah, thank you.
This was a blast.
Both of you take care, and we'll talk
All right.
soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You can follow Dope Nostalgia on Instagram at dope_nostalgia and YouTube at Dope Nostalgia Podcast. Call and leave a message on our voicemail toll free. The number is 1-888-741-9192.
This podcast is licensed by SOCAN because we believe that artists should be paid for their work. Hey, friends. I kind of miss getting those messages on my answering machine like we used to back in the day. What I'd really love is to hear from you, the listeners of Dope Nostalgia. This is your chance to be on the show, giving feedback, telling us what you love, what you hate, and who you'd like to see more of. Call us at our new toll-free number, 1-888-741-9192. Leave us some feedback. Your message could be played on the show. So give us a call, 1-888-741-9192. Toll free.